Okay, hello and welcome to the next episode of Let's Talk Brand. This is the first in Poland series of interviews with world-class branding experts, and today I'm super excited to interview Chris Doe. Before I start asking questions, a few words about my guest. Just a few because the bio is so huge. You will find this below this recording. Chris is an Emmy award-winning designer, director, CEO, and chief strategist of Blind, and founder of the Futur, an online education platform with the mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. Okay, welcome to the podcast, and actually welcome to Poland, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me.
When I first read this mission, I thought it's so huge, and that was wow. This is the real vision, and I wonder how is this mission of I don't know if it's a mission or a vision, because I try to imagine how it is billion people, and how is this mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love going, actually.
Yeah, it's going well. We're early in our mission, and I just look at it like you want to be able to set your goals so far away from you that it forces you to make big decisions. So if I said, let's teach 1 million people, there are things that you can do already to teach 1 million people. For example, we have 1.6 million subscribers to our YouTube channel. So you could say, one could argue that then we've met that goal because we've made 1,300 videos for 1.6 million subscribers. And then I would just quit and do something else. So I think just I know it's big, it's hairy, audacious, and it might take several lifetimes to achieve this goal. But I think it's a good thing for us to have these big goals so that we can continue to push ourselves, to challenge ourselves, and think outside the box.
Okay, so actually this is the kind of the lifetime vision or a mission to teach billion people. Okay, and this forces all the time, and it's okay. This is challenging. Actually, if you could tell what is your story, or what was your professional journey? Because for me, you're like a one-man orchestra, and you do so many things, and you are super visible on the internet. And actually, I wonder who is Chris Doe today. But before we come to that, just if you can give me your story.
Sure. I'm a first-generation immigrant to the United States. I came here in 1975 with my parents from Saigon, Vietnam, at the fall of Saigon. And I found my way into design. I went to a very good private art school, and I created an identity for myself around graphic design. And for 20 plus years, I made commercials and music videos for a living, working with some really big brands. And somewhere along the way, I started to teach, fell in love with teaching, but didn't know what my outlet was going to be. And it all kind of crystallized for me in a couple of like key moments in my life that I made this big switch from being a graphic designer doing client services to creating products and helping people and transitioning to an education company. The first was my wife. My wife is a really strong, opinionated person. And while going to school with me, like when I was teaching there, she had challenged me to think bigger, to change the way that I was working, because I was just impacting the lives of 8 or 10 students at a time every semester. And she was right. I didn't really want to hear that, but it really got me just to think like, what else can I be doing? Now, I didn't have the answer, because the answer doesn't always appear magically like that. But it just so happens within a couple of months, I run into an old schoolmate of mine, and he was telling me like, let's go make products and teach people. And it somehow it resonated with me, but there was a caveat to that. We have to go on YouTube to create awareness around this educational product. And that was where I was like, oh, this is not for me. I'm a behind the camera talent, not in front of the camera. But the decision to do so very reluctantly changed the course of my life and my career and my mission.
Okay. So that was your wife who did this. Okay.
She's to blame if you want to point a finger at someone. Yeah.
Is she the one who inspires you? Actually, I always wonder who inspires a person who inspires others. And you inspire people globally, I guess, today. And who inspires you?
It's kind of strange because I think it's a mutual thing. When I talk to people and they need help, and I hear their stories and they share with me how they were able to change some part of their life for the better, I feel really uplifted. I feel really motivated. I feel very validated and complete as a person. I believe in this. I heard Marshall Rosenberg talk about this. He said that I think it's humans' nature to want to help people in a very genuine way. And I think modern society and this drive to acquire more things has gotten in the way of that. There's also a great quote from Zig Ziglar, who said something like, you can get everything you want in your life if you help enough people get what they want in life. And it's kind of like paradoxical. I think most of us are raised, socialized to want to achieve, to get more for yourself. It's a very capitalistic point of view. And then you wind up pretty empty, not having what it is that you pursued. But I actually think in this pursuit, this kind of second career arc of mine, that the more people I help, the wealthier and healthier I become. So I'm all in on this idea.
So who is Chris Doe today? You are more teacher, or you are still a very active designer? Because when I look at you at the internet, I see the teacher.
Yeah. I think if I retrace my steps, I've always considered myself an entertainer and an educator, but I suppressed a lot of that because I'm a very shy, introverted person. So among my very close friends, I could be this person, but outside the house, outside of a very safe, secure bubble, I was just like this super introspective person. I wasn't really making eye contact with people, and it was just very difficult for me to kind of see myself as anything else. I think part of it is just like being a foreigner to a country, not speaking the language, understanding the culture, not feeling like my roots are here. I always felt like I'm a man out of time or out of place. I don't belong here. And so the journey into creating content really starts to shape my own voice and my own identity and allows me to become more of myself. Oftentimes people remark, people who have seen a lot of the videos from the early days would say, wow, you're really changing. And I can understand the perspective, but I don't think I'm changing at all. I think I'm becoming more myself. Because each time I try something new, I reveal another layer. But I most definitely identify today as an educator student, and I'm comfortable with that label.
Okay. You wrote a book, as I see on the website. What is this book about, or who should buy this one?
The book is called Pocket Full of Dough. It's a play on my last name. And to me, the book is the culmination of a lot of different things happening in my life. One, the big thing is, as I was thinking about what to write about and what to call the book, I just want to share this little story in that when I grew up, the name Doe has a lot of opportunities to be teased, especially here in America. And so it wasn't a name that I was super proud to say and to share with people. And it's because it was a source of pain for me. And I was always like in the first day of school, as the teachers read your name, they always butcher it. They say it some weird way, and then the kids laugh, and then they tease you. And so for me, full circle, like I'm almost 50 years old now, to be able to celebrate my surname, to celebrate my heritage and my family, and just to have fun with it, I think is the tip of the journey that I've been on. Now, I didn't really want to write a book. I don't consider myself a writer. I'm mostly a visual person, but so many people kept tagging me and saying, Chris, we love your thinking. I love these tweets. Like, you should write a book. You should write a book. I just keep thinking, I think that's a distraction. Write a book. That's going to take 6 months of my life to write a book. And in fact, it did take 6 months of my life to write this book. But I made a challenge to myself and to my team. I said, if we can fund this book, then let's go make it. And to my delight and surprise, we set the goal of $30,000. I think we raised almost $80,000. So it's time to go write the book. And the book is a collection of my thoughts, probably originated from Twitter and on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I just collected together the thoughts that really connected with other people, that resonated with them. And then I just expanded those ideas. So I try and cover several different things I've learned in my life about entrepreneurship, about communication, about family, about mindset, about marketing. And it's all collected in there. Each idea is contained on one page. I try to write for how I like to read, which is get me to the point of what it is that you're saying, deliver the message clearly with an economy of words. And that's what I did.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I ask because there's so many books on the market, and actually you cannot read all of them. You have to choose carefully. Because when I was talking to David Breyer, he told me that when you write branding on Amazon, there's almost 10,000 positions. And which one should I choose when I want to learn how to do the branding in a good way? So it's quite difficult, quite important for me to know more about the books, to know which one to choose, not to waste my time. And so that's why I often ask about the books when I speak here with my guest. But I was thinking what I should ask you, because there's so many questions I could ask, but we do not have enough time to answer all of them. And I think I will focus on two things. One is a price, and the second one is a design, which is not a surprise for you. But why price? Because for me, the price is sometimes the beginning of the story. Even this is the beginning of the whole brand when you make a serious decision. I'm a lecturer, and I have seen hundreds of students' presentations about new brand they would like to create. I have had dozens of meetings with companies of all sizes during which I was listening about the company brand. And I will tell you that I'm still waiting for someone who will tell me, we are expensive. We want to be expensive. Meanwhile, most of my students sometimes end the presentations with the statement, it will be cheap, the price will be attractive, our prices are somewhere in the middle. And this is very often, this is something I've heard a couple of weeks ago when I was on the meeting with my client. This is something like, okay, we are cool, but don't worry, we are not too expensive. Actually, I want to be expensive, and I want to give people the reason to spend more money on me. But every time when I see the students' presentation, or I talk to micro or small businesses in Poland, because now I focus on small companies, startups and small companies, there's always the same story. We are somewhere in the middle, we are cheap, this is going to be attractive price. Do you think that people are afraid to give high prices? And actually, where is the problem?
Oh, there are a lot of problems here. There's so many problems. I think we generally have a discomfort talking about money. As creative people, we're afraid to create anything that might create friction. And so we avoid confrontation and friction and any kind of pushback. We have poor measures of our own creative worth because we have nothing objectively to measure it against. Because if you made something that was a commodity in the market that can be compared, at least then you would have a market price. But creativity and the things that you make is so subjective and individual and bespoke in terms of what you create for who you create it for, that it's hard to have these measures. Plus, we have poor role models. We have instructors who teach us the way that they price, and now it becomes a generational problem and a challenge. But when we talk about price, there's a simple thing to understand, that price tells a story. If you were at a open door market and you saw a bunch of watches, and there were several Rolexes, right? And you don't know anything about them. You're not a watch aficionado. You don't know how to spot counterfeits from real ones, but you see ones that are priced $50 and you see ones that are priced a couple $1,000. Without knowing anything about the watch or anything else, you come to some conclusions about which ones are replicas, which ones are counterfeits, and which ones are the original, purely based on price. Price tells the story. And if you look at the world objectively, you can see like, okay, an expensive home must be a good neighborhood. It must be built well. An expensive car, it must handle amazingly. An expensive bottle of wine, it must be the best. It must be vintage from a good vineyard. Okay. And so we can understand that. I think most of us can accept that. And high price things attract high price buyers. Like we attract certain kinds of people, because what we don't understand is the transaction. When we make a decision to buy something, it's not purely dollars and goods. It's about identity. So when people buy something, they're trying to shape their own identity and to find meaning in their life. Okay, so if I buy a Mercedes versus the Toyota, it's because I see myself as a Mercedes owner. Like I've achieved a certain level of success, and I deserve to reward myself with one of the finest automobiles. Whereas if I buy a Toyota, maybe I'm a more sensible person, and I'm not trying to splurge and waste money on a vehicle. Maybe I'm more family oriented. I'm very practical and pragmatic. So everything that you buy is a reflection of who you are and what you do. And so you have to ask yourself, when I price myself lower, what am I telling the client? Maybe I'm the counterfeit. Maybe I'm the poor substitute for the real design firm. Whereas the confident design firm prices high and then says, when you're ready, when you can afford it, when you've achieved a certain level of success, when you want the absolute best and you don't want to take any chances, low risk, come find us. We'll be here. And in fact, if you don't work with us, it's totally fine. We'll be working with your competitors.
Okay, okay. If we are talking about the creative people, and what are the steps? Okay, let's say I have made this decision. I'm going to teach now, or I'm going to give lectures, and I just actually don't know how much to charge for my work. What are the steps to answer this question? The question is simple, but
sure. I have a simple answer too.
Really?
Yes. So how much should you charge begins this conversation, and most people are looking in the wrong direction. Most people look inward. They say, how much is this worth to me? How much time am I giving up for this? What tools, what training, what experience, what have my past clients paid? And so they're asking all the questions, but they're asking them in the wrong direction. To understand what something is worth, you have to understand that you set the price, but the buyer determines the value. So when you set the price, let's just say at $10,000 US, that's the price you set. And then the buyer has to determine, is my problem that I hope to get solved, is it worth more than 10,000? And you can ask 100 people, you're going to have 100 different answers. A lot of people will say no. A few people will say yes. And so the buyer, I think this is what Warren Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So each person has a different sense of value, and they can even change over time. The same person who looks at a bottle of water and says this is not worth anything will change their story when they're in the desert and they're very, very thirsty. And so the value fluctuates depending on the buyer because it requires context and it's very personal. So the best thing that you can do when you're talking about price is to actually have a conversation with the client. If you've ever watched any of my videos, you'll see that whenever I talk to a prospect, I ask them lots of questions. The first thing I want to know from them is, do you have a big, important problem to solve or not? I don't ask it in that way, but in my mind, I'm trying to ascertain if they have a big, important problem. Oftentimes, clients will come to you, and they're sophisticated business people. Everybody needs to understand this. They do transactions all the time. So they're already trained to negotiate you down. And so they'll say things like this. They'll say, yes, I have an important project and it's for a new website. We need to launch this really soon because, my business is growing, but it's not really that important. So, it probably shouldn't cost you a lot, right? You could probably do this for a couple $1,000, I'm thinking. And so they're saying two very different things. It's either big and important or it's not important at all. Now, I don't want to argue with the client. I don't want to defend my position. All I have to do is ask them, I heard two different things from you. It's big and important, but it's not important. I'm having a hard time resolving this conflict. Which is it? Now they have to make a decision. And I'm giving them a lot of opportunity to gracefully change their mind. I'm not trying to trap the client. I'm not trying to get them to admit they're cheap and they're lying. If you do that, then they'll be consistent to that story and they'll go pay someone else a lot more money. So if they say back to you, well, it's not that important. I say, well, fine, let's not do anything. Is there anything that's big and important you'd like to solve? That's when they have to like, oh, shoot, right? Because they know where this is going. And like, you know what, Chris, I misspoke. It actually is a big and important problem. Well, let's talk about the size of the problem. What are you hoping to solve? So I want to understand what their goal is and what it means to them in their business. And I don't need to know it, but I need them to know it. Because they don't come to you thinking, oh my gosh, I have $17 million of unrealized clients that if I only fix this website, then I can capture that market. They're not thinking that. So you just, in conversation, you ask them questions, and then now you understand the filter in which they're looking at this project and how big the problem is. And then at that point, it's up to you and your prospective client to determine what is a fair amount to pay for value created. And it's that simple.
Okay, the fair amount. So actually the problem is not the price, but if the clients understand the value of what you do.
That's right.
Okay.
Does the client understand? Actually, let me rephrase that. Let me be more specific because I don't want anybody walking away thinking anything. I want to be super clear about this. It's not to help the client understand your value. It's to help the client understand the value of the solution that they're asking for. Okay. It's a reason why I also think things like urgency and impact as it relates to the client's very specific business, it's going to help to determine the value. For example, let's just assume that you're a very competent logo designer. Okay. You can design logos with the best of them. Everybody understands that. Objectively, we can say that. The same amount of energy, creativity, and effort that you put into creating a logo is worth completely different depending on who you talk to. So when you talk to the mom and pop business who's 10 years into their business, has an excellent reputation amongst the locals who visit their business, the logo is not going to make much of a difference to their business at all. As much as that might hurt your ego to say like, well, you know, the logo is going to be better when I design it. To be honest, not really, because people don't come to that mom and pop business because of the logo. They come there because of the service, of the people, the product, the connection to community. Oh, I went to school with Giuseppe's father. Yeah, we all get along, and this is a multi-generational business. Amazing. And now he's handed down to his son. Now he's running it. Everything's great. You can use that same logo, and you can go for a mid-sized company where they're shipping their products all over the world. They're not quite the world beater yet, but we know that if you design the logo and customers say it looks phallic or it's inappropriate, then they have to recall all the packaging and reprint all of that and have to deal with the damage that's created with their clients and their customers. And so now just reprinting the package alone has a cost of $40,000, $50,000 just to recall that one package and redo it the right way. That's an expensive mistake. And this is why mid-sized companies will pay more for the same amount of creative energy and logo work that you do because they can't afford to get it wrong. And then you just take that and you scale it all the way up to multi-billion, multinational corporations. And when you get the logo wrong, we're talking about potentially millions of dollars in reprinting alone, just printing costs. I'm not even talking about all the other harder to ascertain things that they have to fix. So that's why what you do is relative to what the clients see as their problem and the solution that they see and how much value they place on it.
Okay, thank you for that. And you started to talk about the design. So when it comes to design, and this is the second part of this conversation. I can see that on the one hand, people focus too much on design, on this veneer, and do not have the basic the basics of the brand, so the purpose, the value, or these differentiators, and or on the other hand, people do not appreciate good design, because I'm often quite sure that people do not see the difference between the good and the bad design, and sometimes they do not want to pay good money, and because they do not believe in something like good design, they do not believe that the good design can change anything, and I know that the design is not enough. But how to explain the clients the real value of the really good and expensive design when this is, I don't know, CEO, and he doesn't see the difference between this logo and this logo, and so how to do this?
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that sentiment, and I want to be careful here, so it's going to be a nuanced answer, okay? And so let me see if I can communicate the first part. I think good design is cheap. Bad design is expensive, because bad design doesn't work. Bad design creates a poor customer experience. Bad design gets ignored on the shelf, and it does not get you that emotional, irrational bond that you have with your customers, where they become raving fans. We take an example from America here, at least. There's a big box store called Target, and Target makes their own in-house goods. And Target realized something. They can hire world-class designers to make housewares, and they have the manufacturing power. And so a desk lamp that sells for $45 could sell for $55 because it's better designed. It sits on the shelf less, and so we're having higher turnover, and so they're clearing more merchandise. Bad design is going to sit there and it's going to be undifferentiated. And so Target has become, and many companies and brands in the world have done this, where they say, let's hire some of the best designers, and with our manufacturing power and our ability to distribute, we can actually put more good design into the world. And there are a lot of companies that are realizing this success. One of which I think is Apple, because at every point of the customer interaction, Apple meets or exceeds your expectations. So when you go to an Apple store, it's bright, it's inviting. No one pressures you to buy anything, which is a very different. That's a departure from how other stores swarm around people walking into the store. Okay, and then when you buy the thing, anyone in the store can help you. So the time in which you get your product and you get in and out of the store, it's as fast as you want it to be. And that's kind of revolutionary too. Like, every person in the store is a cashier, and they can help ring you up. And then you get this product home. Let's say you buy a new iPhone, and then you unbox it, and the unboxing experience is pleasurable. Everything is designed. It's like little unwrapping of a present. Everything makes sense. There's nothing that's not considered. Apple is so obsessed with design that they actually even engineer the parts and design the parts you can't even see, the inside parts, because everything has to be beautiful inside and out. And so you have, I think, what Steve Jobs used to describe as a magical experience. And then you have this bond with the product and the brand that you're willing to pay a premium for, that you're willing to scour the internet to find when the next drop is happening, what the new features are. You're gonna wait in line. You're gonna do all kinds of irrational things for a commodity. So I don't know that I would agree that good design doesn't matter. I think it's short-sighted people who are trying to save $1 are missing the point. These are price buyers. They're not value buyers. Your job as a seller of creative services is to be very discriminating as to who you select for a client. The analogy is this. A gym makes no real promises to you for the kind of transformation that you'll achieve. You pay, you have access. The only thing they're going to say to you is, we'll provide a clean environment that will be open from X hours to X hours. And so a lot of people buy gym memberships and have complete failures. They don't go, they're not transformed, or and in worst case scenario, they hurt themselves, they have an injury. Okay. A personal trainer, on the other hand, has to deliver on a promise. I will help you achieve certain goals, lose certain inches off your waistline, or to be able to be much stronger, to be more physically attractive, to be healthier, all those kinds of things. So the personal trainer realizes if they pick someone who's not motivated, who doesn't show up, who always complains and whines, first of all, the experience is going to be terrible for both people, but their reputation is going to be damaged a little bit. And I think design firms need to stop thinking of themselves as the gym. Any client, as long as you pay, you go in, you do something, whether it works for you or not, doesn't matter to them. I have your money. You need to think of yourself as a personal trainer. I have to be super selective of the kind of clients I take on because I know the transformation that happens at the end of this is critical to my current and future success. That's a difference there.
Okay. Thank you. But actually, you are talking about the design in a wider perspective when we are talking about visual design and the packaging, etc. So, but what about the companies that only want to design a logo and they need a web design, and actually they do not feel or see the difference? Where is the difference between, what's the definition of the good design and the bad design?
Right. It's a lot more subjective now, right? Okay, because I was talking about tangible things. It's a little easier to see, and you're right. It's a little more challenging, but it's not impossible. So here's the thing. When a client comes to you and they're only shopping based on price, they're price buyers, so lowest price wins. And if they have poor taste and they don't have strong customer relationships, I would say that's a hard pass. You're just like, we're not the right company for you. I think you're looking for like a discount design firm, and there are many on the internet. I'm sure you'll do fine. And just walk away. Don't waste your time with those people. Now, I find that really successful entrepreneurs, CEOs of very successful companies, the reason why they're successful is they're very discerning. Once again, I bring it back to Steve Jobs. He is insane. He's the kind of guy who has a vision to create an Apple store and then wants to fly to Italy to select every single slab of marble that they're going to use personally. So that kind of insanity says, I really care. Every detail matters, and I will see the difference between A and B. And those people will probably drive you crazy as clients, but they'll also demand the very best and pay for the very best, which they did. Now, when we talk about design, can someone argue that this logo is superior to that logo? I think they can, but as many opinions that exist in the world, you can probably get a lot of different arguments why something is good and why something is bad. And we get trapped in this cycle of debating with other creatives. This is a horrible rebrand and this is a good rebrand. Design Twitter is like that. But when we move into things like a website, this now has tangible metrics and analytics that you can look at. You move the button a little bit to the left, to the right, it changes where people hover over and the conversion ratios and the bounce rate. Every little thing, the color, the size, the photographs, the block of text, it can have an impact. And what you need to do now is designer becomes part scientist and part creative person. And I think that's why people in UX and UI get paid a lot more money than people who just design logos, unless you're a world famous logo designer. And so we have to say, in this spectrum of design services that actually can create impact on the bottom line, where do we want to live? And we want to have a different kind of conversation. One other thing that we can ask is, if the logo doesn't matter to a company, don't try to sell them an expensive logo. It's just plain and simple. I, for one, hate the Under Armour logo. I don't know anything about the company, its origins, but it's a competitor to, say, Nike or other companies in terms of making sporting, like athletic wear and shoes, right? But I hate the logo so much that I can't bear to wear anything with their logo because it's atrocious to me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if you are a brand that wants to attract discerning buyers, and I say this to my wife all the time when we're at the outdoor store, which usually have horrendous logos, and I say to her, am I being a snob by not wanting to buy this really well-designed product, but their logo sucks? And she goes, no, because it's terrible and it's big and it's gross. And so you see, we're trying to shape our environment from the things we wear to the things that we sit on and the walls that we look at to reflect an aesthetic that mirrors how we see ourselves. And so I don't totally dismiss that aesthetics things do not matter. It just matters to the right people and it doesn't matter to the wrong people.
Okay, I asked because I had a client who started the process of designing a new logo. They hired a graphic designer, a good one, and he prepared some propositions. And actually, they came to me because they couldn't answer the question which logo is going to be good for them. They were well designed, but to answer these questions, I had to do the process of asking some other questions and to help them to answer. Okay, this one is a good face for you because, and there were some arguments. So that's why I'm asking about the good and bad design, because even the logo was good designed, they still didn't know if it's good for them or it's a bad one.
Yeah. There are things that you can do though to help the client. I think if you were to show me 2 swatches of red paint on a piece of paper and you're asking me to pick, how would I know which one is better? And so what we need to do is we need to see it in context. Why don't we paint a little swatch on the wall, on a couple of walls, and you can live with it after it dries. And as the sun moves through your room, you can see like which color works better. And now I can understand, okay, I can pick A or B. I don't know if you know this, but it's impossible for us to make decisions outside of context. Like we need to know compared to what. So when we ask somebody to look at 2 logos, well, one logo compared to the other, it might be helpful. But what if we were to put this into actual applications where the client's going to see this shopping bag on their letterhead, on a business card, on their van, on their building, and then we see it in multiple applications, and all of a sudden the client says, oh, this other logo, that's not going to work because it has all these kinds of functional problems. And so now we're not just arbitrarily picking one over the other if they're 2 well-designed logos. We need to see it in context. So one of the best things that you can do for yourself as an identity designer is to always put the mark in context. And there's a lot of reasons why you want to do that. One of the things that you'll save yourself from is, to me, good marks are very simple. They almost seem obvious after they're designed. And it's almost in the client's mind, like, so all you did was pick a typeface and put some shapes together. And so they want to discredit the kind of thinking and reductive process that you went through to get to this very simple solution. The way that you counter that is you render that logo in some amazing comps. You put on packages and you make it seem really big. The client doesn't have a great imagination. It's why they hired you, but they can't see what's inside of your head. So the more applications that you can show that are relevant to them, the more they're going to see like, wow, I can see the applications. I can see how we're going to use this. And I feel like I'm looking into the future. And so you'll move the conversation away from, well, so that's just a typeface, to, wow, this is the brand, the kind of company I've always dreamt of you having. I just didn't even know how to tell you, and you've captured what's in my heart and in my mind.
Okay, that's a wonderful piece of advice. Thank you. And actually, thank you, Chris, for sharing your knowledge with Polish entrepreneurs, marketers, and students as well, because my students are watching us as well. And it was really pleasure to have you here. And the last thing I would like to ask you is very simple. Where can we follow you? If you can invite people to your channels.
Yeah, so I would love for people to check out what we do. We try to make it super easy for you to find us. The easiest place is go to thefutur.com, and future is spelled without an E. It's Futur, or Futur, as some people like to pronounce it. And I'm at the Chris Do, that's D-O, and I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, I'm everywhere, I'm on Clubhouse, so it's very easy to find me, and I'd love to have conversations with your students.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for your time.
My pleasure.